So for those of you joining, we're just going to wait a minute just to make sure that everyone who wants to participate is in the room. And we'll give it a minute and gosh, it's filling up very quickly.
That's good. Seems like we've tapped out now, so yeah.
Okay. So thank you all. Happy Friday. And welcome to the introduction on our latest synergy group, which is ERP. It's a relatively new category or product. And so for those of you unfamiliar, we will explain what it is and frankly why it's an essential part of modern business. But we'll start off with introduction. So I'm Tonya Nagel. I'm a board advisor for the Synergy Groups and a moderator for today. I'm with Ric Wilson and Rob Richmond, so I'll pass you over, just explain who you are, what your company is, and your role in the Synergy Group. So, Ric?
Hello. I founded a company called ERP Experts 20 years ago. And as you might expect, we're experts in ERP. So I've been doing that for a long time. In the last 5 years, my journey's taken me into mergers and acquisitions, and more on that to come, I guess.
Yeah. And you currently own two companies in this space, don't you?
I have a consulting company which called regenerate.com or Regenerate, which is our way of transforming businesses using a methodology that I've been working on for 20 years. And part of that is ERP or systemization.
Okay, thank you. And Rob?
Yeah, I'm the founder and board advisor for Synergy Groups. Been an entrepreneur for way too long. And yeah, love helping. I love adding value to business owners' journey, and hence why this whole initiative came about. And yeah, that's it basically in a nutshell. I could bore you with the rest of the details, but we'll leave that till later.
Cool. Okay, so we sort of started touching on it, but ERP stands for Enterprise Resource Planning. Let's get a little bit more explanatory for those who are less familiar with it. So what is it and why do businesses need it, Ric?
It is a fancy way of saying that you have one system that manages your entire business. I didn't realize it was that kind of meeting. Sorry.
Layer off.
You have one system that manages your entire business, as opposed to lots of little ones that you then have to join together to get the answer out that you want. And really, what you're trying to achieve in business is a single version of the truth. If you have anything else other than that, you end up arguing with different versions of the truth in different systems and different versions of it. So the way we describe it succinctly is when you have business, you either have a business management tool or you have department management tools. Department management tools produce multiple versions of lies, and an ERP tool produces a single version of the truth. With that, you can do more of what works and less of what doesn't. So your board meetings get transformed, and you see it all the time. We've been doing this 20 years. So you walk in and it's chaos. 6 months later, you walk in and it's like, oh, look, all the answers are on there. So that's what's going on. What we're going to do about it. It's up to us to make that and change what we're doing to make the numbers that we want.
Yeah, and I personally have been in so many leadership team meetings where we're all arguing about the number rather than talking about what it is that we're going to do about the number because we can't agree on what the number is. So I think I think a lot of people will feel that, particularly if they've worked in business, medium to large size businesses. What we did in the companies was we would create integrations. You'd have a data lake and you'd have very complex, processes to fuzzy match and try and get all the different systems. Why? And a lot of time I hear that what you do is you end up with best in class system in finance, in HR and whatever, and then those integrations then make it work. Why do you think ERP, what are the advantages and disadvantages?
What you've just described is very expensive, and often unnecessarily complicated, and is what is really when the mid-level ERP is what you would approach if you were a 500 million plus company. So that's still a strategy, but really it's when enterprise level tools don't do everything that you need. If you're smaller than that, there's a much better way of doing it. And bearing in mind, most of the businesses in the space that we're talking to at the moment are 2 to 5 mil. And then the next level up is, say, 5 to 25 mil, somewhere in that. And it does depend largely on the business model. So you can say a business is 25 million, for example, but they might only have a 20% gross margin. So they're like a £5 million company, really. They've just got they're buying expensive stuff and selling it at a small margin. So, and that means that the capital they've got to deploy on systems is different. So it is horses for courses a little bit. But you're trying to make this simpler, not more difficult. You're trying to minimize the number of joins. And whilst I haven't got a slide deck to illustrate all this, so I'll try and keep it really simple because it does get involved fairly quickly. Every time you've got another system, you have systems that butt up to it, and where like paving stones, and where those butts or where those joins are, there are cracks, and the answers to your questions falls in the data cracks. And so when you haven't got any of those, it can't fall anywhere. So that's why a single system's better. At some point, you may need a enterprise ERP system, which is like Oracle itself or SAP, full SAP. These are big tools. They cost millions per year to rent them, and they're not really what we're talking about today. And it's not what you do.
And so it sounds like obviously there's a different size and maybe a different solution for different sizes of companies. What sizes of models are you what's the smallest size, and up to where do you kind of focus, or where do you want to focus?
Over the last 20 years, we've worked with companies that are 1 million turnover, but they don't buy anything. They're not, so that they're 1 million turnover, and the only cost is the staff. So the gross margin is basically £1 million. But the turnover is £1 million because they don't have a cost of sale. They're just a professional services business, a bit like us. And then there's a manufacturing business that make a 30% margin. You really need to be, if you're a manufacturing business, 4 to 5 mil is entry level for this. If you're a professional services company, 1 to 2 million is probably about right. Professional services might be marketing, it might be legal, might be what we do, just any form of consulting, project management, that kind of thing. So it's small, not tiny. It's too much. These things cost something, and you need clever guys to build them. Once they're built, they're rock solid, they're robust, and they run themselves. But you still need a team to do that. You'd be ambitious to do it on your own unless you had a background in it. You can't. I mean, I could build one in a week, but I've been doing it 20 years. So yeah, you need help to get it out the box.
Okay. And obviously over the course of this, you've got involved in M&A. Tell me a little bit about that and how you got involved and some of your experiences.
The first one was I won a big client back in 2013. So I've been doing this about 8-10 years, something like that. And I won a big client. And the truth was, I'm not an engineer. I'm a consultant who's nosy and quite capable of tech and process. And but I'm not a developer or a software architect or anything like that. I don't write code. So at some point, as these systems got bigger and better, if you wanted to make them do something they didn't, enhance them, extend them, you need those guys. And up until about then, you didn't really need them. You could get the sizes of businesses that we were appealing to who wanted to replace fragmented systems and a fragmented infrastructure with a single version of the truth, to do that within the box itself. But then as things got better and demands got higher, and Facebook and Instagram and all these things, and people want everything connected to everything all the time, I needed more talent, and I wasn't going to learn how to do it. So I partnered with a team for a big project, and we got on really well. So we merged the businesses together to form the ERP Experts kind of brand, I guess. And then and we bought a couple of businesses at the time. One was this is back in 2015, 16. One was a business full of talent, in really simple terms, great at doing the job, not so great at selling, and then or at generating customers. And then our business, which was kind of the other way around. Great at consulting, great at adding value, great at finding customers. And then along the way, another guy saw what we were doing and wanted to join in, and so we took him along for the ride as well. And then latterly, I've been involved. I bought another couple of businesses along the way. Where the journey's taken me is a lot of our clients, a significant number of our clients, are owned by very large private equity companies, billion-dollar private equities. And so I've built relationships with those, and this stuff fits in really well, to the point where, just to not make a very long story, just make it short, what these guys look for is an exit point. So if you're going to exit to private equity, what they look for is something that they can throw money at and scale rapidly. So if you've already put the infrastructure in place, run it for a couple of years so it's stable, and you've proven to them the marketing techniques and methods that you've already tried in the system, in the data, so they can just run a search and say, don't do that, don't do that, do that, then they will pay top dollar for that, because they're low on time and they don't really mind what it costs if it's the right tool for the job. They just don't. They've got 5 years, 3 to 5 years to make 10x. And that's their entire goal. They don't really care about the cost. And they actually don't care about debt either. One of the things that's a misconception, I think, I certainly say this a lot, is if you're a 5 million, 10 million, 20 million pound business and you have £1 million because of the debt, fine. But if you're a private equity company worth 3 billion, you've probably got £500 million worth of debt, so 500 million, which means you're borrowing at 3%, whereas I might be borrowing my 1 million at 9%. So if they refinance my borrowing when they acquire the business, they make 5% on the net. So they don't care about debt because they can borrow so much more cheaply because of the scale. And often banks fund private equity companies. Banks are partners and on the board, so they've got other deals going on.
It's really interesting in the dynamics, and I think what you are saying, particularly about what they are looking for, is something that rings very true for us. One of the things that in Synergy Groups we are very keen on is making sure that your due diligence data room is prepared and ready, so that, you know, if you want an exit, it's a presentation rather than being a lot of time, expense, and money being spent on going and finding the stuff in history. And so actually having a system which shows that history and compliance makes absolute sense to me. Completely.
And also, if you want to grow faster, the reason these guys like it is because it enables them to grow faster and scale and do more of what works and less of what doesn't. Well, if you want to get your system from where you're at now to where you want to exit, do it now so you can grow faster too. Just, you know, it literally tells you what to do. It's not.
Yeah. So I'm curious. So obviously you have benefited. You know how to do inorganic growth. You've benefited from acquisition and mergers. Why are you attracted to Synergy Groups? What is it about Synergy Groups that you said, well, this is different to just doing this group building myself?
I think there's two bits, or two elements to it, really. One is I learned, I say recently, but in the last couple of years, that I enjoy the dance a lot more when I'm not doing it on my own. So the merger and acquisitions element, and when you work in ERP, you have to be very good. If you're going to be an ERP consultant or a good one, a lead ERP consultant, which I've been for a long time, you have to be able to understand marketing extremely well. So because otherwise, why would the marketing director talk to you, and how are you going to add value? And the same is true of manufacturing, project management, sales, finance, customer service, and CEO. So why would these guys have you in to consult with if you don't know at least what they do? And these are quite often, you know, with our day-to-day business, might be 20, 30, 40 million pound businesses. They might be international. One of them is about 80 million in 37 countries. Why are they going to listen to me? I'm not even an accountant. So I need to add value in that respect. So it means I can generalize, but I do have things that I'm best at. And it means that I get to stick to my knitting. That's one thing. So that one of the advantages of doing this is that, or doing this in a team or a group environment, is that I get to do what I prefer and what I'm best at.
So with the board advisors that are coming in to work with you, you mean?
Yes, 100%. And but so there's an element of I get to do the bits I like, but there's also an element of it's just I'm trying to avoid saying lonely, so I'll stop avoiding it. It's lonely and it's difficult doing it on your own. I have business partners, but they have their stuff to do, so it's more fun together.
And do you find that there's an element of, I have this, I've obviously worked in multifunctional, I've led multifunctional teams, but my knowledge of finance is like this. I understand what it's being talked about, but when it gets down to depth, I really have to visualize it and I need help. And there are all sorts of ideas of what you can and can't do that come from people who know it in that level of depth that just inspire me. So I think there's something like that as well, is there?
Unfortunately, I can't get away with that because I have to in order to do my day job, I had to develop that level of depth of understanding. But then, in fairness, when you're building finance systems and designing them all day, because an ERP system is a finance system underneath everything, and the ones we use more often than not are very, very powerful at international finance. But the fact that it can do that, if all you need is that, it can still do that, even though it's capable of doing that. So you just turn these bits off and pay less. So if you don't need powerful international finance, you just need UK finance in UK GAAP, just use that. Then you put the project management and the manufacturing or the professional services or the time management or whatever it is you're doing on top, then the CRM, then the customer service, and suddenly you've got this single version of the truth we all speak about. One customer, you type the name and there's only one version comes back from the customer. There's only one contact, and it just makes everything easy.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, so going to go and talk to board advisor, Rob. From your point of view, what are the key points about the Synergy Group model, and why it's working for people like Ric, myself, whoever?
A lot of the time, I think it's because business owners are so close to the coalface that they lose sight of the strategic side of their business. So they can't do that side of it. And like you alluded to a minute ago, Ric, it's a very lonely sport being an entrepreneur. Sometimes you might have one or more partners, but really speaking, you don't have a wider audience. You might, but they're not aligned. So you can go to networking events, you can go to business seminars, but they're not really aligned with your thought process. The advantage of coming into Synergy, you've got 40 board advisors that are all aligned with your way of thinking, and you've got other business owners that are aligned with your way of thinking. So it's that common goal in a bigger group and years of experience across multiple disciplines, like Ric's helping with another group, and that's cross-pollinating. And it's a great example of how this works, because you do ERP, you're doing it with M&P, funny enough. Yeah, so it works particularly well about cross-pollination across groups.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that from a marketing point of view, as I'm looking at the marketing group and looking at where the others sit, what are the opportunities for cross collaboration even outside of my own group. So okay, one of the things that I get asked a lot about is, what does that group structure look like? So if I'm interested, what does it look like? What are the brass tacks? And we famously like to be transparent. So will you share the details for?
Yeah, sure, no problem at all. So first of all, if I just take through the steps first, because that will explain why we do certain things in a certain way. So first of all, we have a 3-step process. We have the business insight, which is going back to your point at the beginning of the webinar, which was about creating that data room. So we do a business insight, we get an organic, inorganic growth strategy for you. We do a valuation of your company where it is today, and also your transition plan. We make a business plan out of that, and then we put you in the group incubator. Now, at this phase, you're a standalone business, you haven't been brought into a group structure. That's a very deliberate reason why, because the valuation you've got today, if we did roll you up there and then into a group holding company, every time we bring in a new one, we're going to have to reset the shares. So we don't actually do it at that point. We allow you to go through that organic and inorganic growth process. And once you've finished the group incubators phase, then we take you through to the next one, which is actually rolling you up. So we do another valuation at that point, and then we can go through the group structure, which is what you were asking about. But I had to go through that so you understand what I'm about to show you. So the way the group holding company will be split into 3 sections. 70% is assigned to all the companies within the group.
Rob?
Yes.
I think you were intending to swap what you were sharing.
No, sorry, I do apologize.
Yeah, don't worry.
Yeah. So
I do that all the time. So I thought,
yes, I thought it was swapping. That's hilarious. Right. Okay. So yeah, should always click on the right one that says share screen, not share. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. Perfect.
So we got the key elements. It's split into 3 sections. You've got 70% is assigned to the group, to the group itself. And I'll explain how that works in a second. And then the platform company gets an additional 5% as kind of like a thank you for being the first one in. Because like things, we don't want to be the first one in. So this is kind of how we do it. We've got enough groups now. I mean, I'll show you a list of them in a minute. But then the stakeholders take 25%. Now, the way it works is this. If you took 7 companies, they were all looking for an exit of, say, £1 million, because when we start this process, we ask, there's a required and a desired exit price. So there's a minimum price and an ideal price, basically. So let's go with the 1 million each. You've got 7 companies. They would all get 10% of the group holding company, and the platform company gets an additional 5. So technically speaking, we would need to sell that group for a minimum of 7.5 million to achieve everyone's goal. Now, the way we make our value add is that we want to sell the group for more than that. So long as we get it above that 7.5 million, then we take our value add, or our percentage of the deal. So if we don't, we take the haircut. So it's that simple. The way we do the whole process is that if we don't add value, we won't stick around. I don't see any point in pushing mud up a hill. So even our contracts are set for a very short term. And do you want me to go more into that, or does that explain it enough?
I think that's okay. I think the other question I get asked a lot is, well, what if during that process I either, don't think this is adding value, or what if during that process I decide I want to sell to somebody else independently?
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, if you want to stage your exit, we have a flexible equity release option, which is you can say, right, I want to sell 10% this year, I want to sell 10% next year, 50% the year after, whatever you want to do, it's your journey. And that is the real bottom line, that this is about your journey, not ours. So you dictate the rules, we just implement them. So that's that side. So going back to the termination, as I said earlier, phase 1, 3-month period. And then we have a get out clause, which is a 14-day window. So we try and keep all of our agreements as short as possible so that you've always got that flexibility to go, no, you're not adding value. So we go, but we want you to feel that we are, so you will continue anyway. So when you get to the end of the business insight phase, which is normally 3 to 6 months, depends on how fast you can move with us. Then we've got a 14-day window where you've got the option to go, that's enough. And then it will automatically flip over into the phase 2, which is normally somewhere between 24 to 36 months. But there again, everything's flexible. So it's totally up to you. That's just our basic framework.
Yeah. And obviously, so that's in terms of shares. From a board advisory point of view, you'll have people working with you as board advisors, but until you've reached the valuation, there'll be no equity. So how do the board advisors get remunerated?
Good question. Right. So our fees are basically aligned with us adding value. So we charge 1% of EBIT. We do have a minimum. It's around 2,500. Well, it depends on the particular situation, but we do have a minimum. But again, that's flexible. If it really depends how much value we think we can add. And that's something else we generally won't take on a business that we don't think we can add value to. So if we are engaged with you, you can be rest assured that we are engaged with the process. So we're there to, like I said, to add value. And as we push the EBIT up for you, our fees go up accordingly. So that way you can see that we're all aligned with the same process.
Okay, cool. Now, I meant to say to people, if you have any questions, put them in the chat or in the Q&A as we go along, but we will be stopping for a short while at the end as well. Ric, what's your group vision then? So for the ERP Synergy Group, what's your plan? What's your goal?
There's two levels to it, really. One is we mainly deal with one platform, and we're called Oracle NetSuite. It's a small to mid-market offering for the lower end of things. Oracle are a global company and one of the top 10 companies in the world. So they've got loads of products, and it's and this is a really good one for that. And we've been doing this for 20 years, and we're very comfortable in that space. However, it's a little bit like going to your bank and saying, "Can I have a mortgage?" They'll sell you one, but it might not be the best one for you. And so suddenly you've got to go and get an independent mortgage broker and find somebody who'll do the whole of market and do an assessment for you and say, based on what you've told me you want to buy that house with your salary and your circumstances, this is the right deal for you. And there's not many people who do that. It's very complicated. It's very difficult. There's lots of reasons why people don't do it. And so what we're looking to do is two things. One, build a bigger NetSuite practice as a result of growing the group. And then ideally build a rainbow flavor of practices so that we could, if the ambition comes off, we say, we're the ERP Experts group. And if you're considering ERP, come talk to us. Why? Because we do the red one, the orange one, the yellow one, the blue one, the green one. No matter whether they're in manufacturing, whatever it is, we can help. And the very least we can do is demo them to you and show you the differences. And if you're in this sector, you need one of these three. And we don't want to do that by having to employ people and build teams inside one company, because there's commercial reasons why you wouldn't do that. There's license restrictions from big vendors who just don't want you doing that. So, but it's still a good idea. It still makes sense from a client's perspective. Because when you've talked to them, they say one of the biggest frustrations when people buying these things is no, what do you call it, whole of market broker. Everyone's trying to ram their thing down your throat, and it doesn't need to be that way.
On that point, what you were saying there about scaling, if you've got organic growth, that's one thing. But if you've got inorganic growth, as in acquisitions, you know as well as I do that will increase the value of your exit quite considerably. So I had one example of that where they had a 350,000 EBIT, which gave them about a 3x multiple, so roughly $1 million valuation. By adding 150,000 to their turnover, so we focused that on, 150,000 to their EBIT, we were able to take them to the next multiplier at 500,000, which is 4x. So we now took, by increasing their EBIT by 150,000, we took them from 1 million valuation to 2 million valuation just doing that. That if you do that across a group, your multiplier goes up anyway. So you can go up by 150,000, but your actual value of your company could go up to 5, 6, 7x of that. So you can go up 3-4 million, and you started with a £1 million company. So there's a lot of ways that that we can increase the value as we're building out that group, dramatically changing your personal exit at some point.
And one of the things, particularly as you're looking at groups, we talked about why would you have, so Ric, you were talking about a rainbow flavor, something for every solution. There are, and I was trying to understand, okay, well, if I was looking at what's the right solution for me, and you were talking about how the complexities start to adjust or change what those solutions might be. So geography, number of companies, type of industry. Can you tell us a little bit about that so that we can understand, a little bit of what you're looking for?
Sure. So in terms of if a client's looking for a solution and they've got multiple jurisdictions, they're in multiple jurisdictions, so multiple countries, they're using different accounting GAAP. GAAP is an acronym, GAAP, generally accounting accepted principles, accepted accounting principle. So they've got different rules in each jurisdiction, and then they've got to make sure that, and then some of the companies trade with each other as well as reporting upwards, that the landscape gets sophisticated quickly. Now, for an accountant, that's just intercompany stuff. It's consolidation, it's elimination. And if you're a senior accountant, it's bread and butter. You should be used to that. However, doing it manually in Excel and then producing accurate board level reports for your investors is an absolute nightmare. And most of the tools out there aren't sophisticated enough to do it. Then when you say to them, then layer on top of that my pipeline management, so I can look at my leads, my prospects, my customers, my future business, and how and when that's going to land. Then when you look at countries like America, where they have revenue recognition and amortization is mandatory, in the UK it's not. In some countries in Europe, it's mandatory. And what that means is you can't recognize the revenue and the cost in your P&L until you've done the work. So whilst these are nitpicky accounting things that guy can or that person can worry about, it really, really affects the valuation that you're going to get when you leave if you haven't got these tools in place. Because what's got to happen is somebody's got to put them in, so that the board can get so that the new guys can get the information out that they want and grow it the way they want to, with accurate, instead of guessing. So I think a quick way of saying it is it gets gnarly quickly, and it's harder than it looks.
So as a marketer, I talk about value reframing. And, one of the ways I look at this is that how much would it cost me to have a person or persons doing that work versus having that system and the right system in place. So what have you got in the pipeline in terms of this group? Are you looking at any other companies? Is there anything in the offing?
Yeah, there's. I think one of the people, if I believe my WhatsApp, is dialed in, who's considering. So we've got a Microsoft group, a Microsoft company who are actually bigger than us, who are looking at coming in. We're already doing some joint ventures and exploring how we work together well, but that's probably going to be the first one. We've got some other NetSuite partners. I was on the phone to them this morning, who are considering joining us as part of the group. So we'll have a larger NetSuite cohort, like I said earlier, and then some other flavors in there as well, so that we can start to get the message out there and go to market. There's also a potential to do a JV in a different country, or to do, not a JV, to do a deal with an outfit in a different country who are going to the stock market. I need to learn a little bit more about that first, but we're talking to them. I was speaking to them last night.
And it's interesting because a lot of people would see it almost as a barrier. If I'm a competitor of yours, I not necessarily want to need to join your group, but actually the power of the group is 1 + 1 = 3, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it is. Partly for the reason that Rob was saying, but that's kind of focused on the exit. So what you're trying to do is make it easier for people to run the businesses. And what I certainly find, because it's been me doing it for a long time, is people don't know what they don't know, so they don't know what to ask. So you go in there and say, well, this is best practice. They might never have seen it before. So when you're trying to provide the solution, it's this is just best practice, guys. This is how we do it. This is how the big boys do it, is often the pitch. And we're bringing that level of knowledge and wisdom down to people who might be looking at this for the first time. The systems are getting better, so they're more affordable.
And of course, from a group point of view, you're joining together 2 client lists, 2 EBITs, and then you're going out to the world as a larger organization, and therefore probably able to take on more and larger clients as well.
Yeah, one of the challenges is if you've got 5 guys, you're limited to the size of project you can do. We've got 25 guys, so we can do some interesting projects, but we can't do international ones. I mean, there was a job that required a team of 5 people to go around the world to 22 countries to roll. We couldn't do it. We couldn't even pitch for it because we just haven't got the resource to do it. I mean, sure, We could have partnered with people to do it. It's not really, it's not our wheelhouse, so we just walked away from that one. We could have won the deal. That wasn't the problem. The problem was rolling it out.
Just a matter of interest, what do you just cover the UK, or can you cover other jurisdictions? And if so, which ones?
We do. Most of our clients are UK based, but nearly all of them are international. 80% of them are international. Some of them, the biggest ones in 37 countries, dealing with 8 currencies, and we wrote, including China, Brazil, Mexico, which are some of the worst countries to deal with commercial and financially, not commercially, they're good commercially, but the currency's up and down, and it changes twice a day. So in big ways. And so there's some challenges dealing with those things. China is a particularly difficult jurisdiction to deal with. Just ask any accountant who's dealt with it. So, but we have decades of experience of dealing with those types of scenarios. And we also, there's another restriction on this, the Oracle place. Because I've been doing this a long time, we have a license that allows us to trade in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, which is kind of everywhere outside America and Asia, I suppose. So we don't really make enough of that. So one of the things I'm hoping to explore and exploit with this is because there's only 3 companies in the world got that license, and we're a tiny version. We're tiny. We shouldn't really have it, but we have got it. And I just want to grow so that we're big enough to use it. The way it works at the moment is, if companies are UK based and they have subsidiary abroad, we've got the knowledge, the depth, and the experience to be able to deal with it. But if somebody came to us from South Africa, they might go somewhere else first, and we want to try and change that.
So actually, one of your targets is people who are in this space but maybe based elsewhere. That would really help you expand that client base as well.
100%. The Europe, Middle East, and Africa is a big target for us, and I've set a personal goal this year that if we hit a revenue target, we'll open an office in Dubai.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to ask one more question, then we'll go to questions from the attendees. But so everyone always asks me what exit looks like, and there are obviously multiple ways to exit. What's your vision? I understand these things change, but where's your head at the moment?
Until recently, it was kind of get it to a place that would generate the number that I wanted, and then start to think about what do I do afterwards? Because all the while you're in it, and I've been doing this a long time, and I'd kind of miss it if I wasn't doing it. But then I can go get a job doing it. I don't, I can go and do something else. And M&A is quite busy, that's so. But my kids are 23 and 21. They're both doing the finals. My son finished yesterday. My eldest son finished yesterday, mechanical engineering, and the other one's doing biology. He wants to come and work here. So I kind of changed. So I don't know. It's the truth. Honestly, it was put some time into. I'm 57, I think now. So start to think about what's our future going to look like for me and Helen. But now I kind of I don't know what I'm going to do. It's a truth be known. But there you go. That's how. But one of the things I was going to say is the exits for me, or the exits for this. On its own are different than the exits for the group. As a group, we could exit to a market. And that's something I hadn't considered. We wouldn't have been big enough, I don't think, to go to a market. It'll take us a long time to get there. But as a group, I think we could. One of the barriers, as a listing, yeah. And one of the barriers of going to the market is the compliance. And the tools that we put in are the tools that do 2 things out of the box. They are Sarbanes-Oxley compliant, which doesn't really mean anything unless you're in a certain sector of the world, but it basically means they make the compliance easy. And also,
it doesn't get you an Exxon's category, put it that way.
No. Well, yeah, that's why the rules changed. The revenue recognition rules changed in the state. So and the other side is having a NetSuite system, for example, is a badge of credibility when it comes to exiting. So the guys have got a tick list at the other side of the table. like people like Inflection or Nimbus, when you're looking to exit to those guys, they say, so what's your EBIT? High teens, perfect. What's your revenue? What's the percentage and what's the number? Okay, that's we're interested. What's your infrastructure like? What's your revolving door like? Have you got a decent culture? And they look at all these things. And if you've got a NetSuite platform, they're very interested, because the fact that you've got it means you're aware. The fact that you've got it means you're using it. Then they ask for then they sign an NDA and ask for it, and they can see the data there. It just makes it easy for them, so they can put the money in and get it. And you get the idea.
And in terms of the exit, I think one of the things that I appreciate about the groups is how flexible it is, not just for the group, but also for the individuals within the group. Because essentially you can, move out of that working in it to working on it to being an investor and just take a passive income from your business.
Mm-hmm.
As you say, you can list it. And then if it's listed, the individual owners are able to exit part of or all of when they want. Others can stay in. And you can also exit to the other owners in the group, because if the group is working well and you're a part of that group, the other owners are likely to want to buy you out. But you can also get investors in from outside to buy the individual owner or to buy the group as a whole. So, it's very flexible. And actually, whilst, some of us have in mind where we want to go, that journey changes, and that journey can change depending on the circumstances and what's on the table.
One of the things that attracted me to the groups, and also I was talking earlier about the company they're going for a direct listing. They've acquired and now doing about 40 million. They're a lot bigger than us. They might want to buy us, but we're in the same group together.
Yeah.
And that's just, how else do you get that level? How else do you sell it to your mates and your friends in the same group? It's just a really nice structure, and it gets through all the "I don't trust you" nonsense that you have to go through when you're doing M&A, because we all go through it every single time. We've got to prove that we're trustworthy, incredible, and everything else, and the buyer's got to learn how to trust us quickly, or trust us at all. So this helps that go away. It's an hidden benefit, but I think it's quite a big one.
Well, that's kind of why we did these webinars in the first place, because I like to be transparent about things in business and generally speaking. And I found that doing it this way, it gives business owners that have got that doubt or uncertainty or just want to see social proof of what you actually do. We thought, put it out there. You get to meet the business owner. You get to hear about their story. You know where they're going, and you can follow it, because we're going to follow everyone's journey. So it will all be out there for the public to see. We're not shying away. And as I said to someone earlier today, I said, show me a business coach, a consultant, M&A, VC, any of them that actually put out their stall and actually show what they do. There isn't. We're the only ones who do it. And yes, we're going to have road bumps, we're going to have disasters, but we're transparent and we own our mistakes. So, I think that's the most important thing moving forward.
Okay, with an eye on the time, I'm going to move to Q&A. We have one from Lena, which says, what's the minimum size a company must be to qualify for joining the group? I'm going to assume this is for ERP initially, and then we'll answer it for that way, and then we'll answer it for the other group. So, Ric?
Great question. Not really thought about it, to be honest. I think to be in this space, if you're doing 100,000 a year, you're really a consultant. If you're doing 500,000 a year, we consider it, because you're not a consultant anymore. You're at least 3 or 4 consultants. So
in terms of turnover or EBIT?
Yeah. In terms of turnover, that would be fine. The thing that you'd be looking at as joining is, okay, this gets me bigger, quicker, sooner. But there's an element of this that you need to realize. If the group's worth 10 million and you bring 500,000 in, for example, just throwing numbers out there, that means your share is 5%. Well, you might not be happy with that. So we need to work all that out. But is there a minimum entry level? Not really, no.
Yeah. Lena also says, can you help me exit my other partners?
Yeah, of course. That's no problem. We just need to find out what they want and work out a way to help them get it, which is kind of the ethos behind this in the first place. So yeah, 100%. Let's have a chat afterwards.
Okay. I'm going to ask Rob the same question because the answer might be if for anyone who's not in the ERP space but looking at synergy groups generally. What's the rule of thumb for the size of company to join a group?
Ideally, I mean, like Rick said, it really, if it's a bolt-on, it could be any size. If you want a particular exit, that's fine. But generally speaking, it's 250,000 EBIT. 200,000 is fine. It's not a hard and fast rule. The reason being is because you're at a certain size structurally, normally speaking, so that way we can help to scale you faster. If like Rick said, you're 500,000, then that's what we would call a bolt-on. It's able to be put into a larger entity and it will work fine. So either way, totally fine.
Rick, what have you told your staff, if anything, about the group? And
love that question. Sorry.
and does it give them reassurance for their future? And I get this a lot because a lot of people, staff would go, "Oh, does that mean you're selling us? Does that mean we're going to lose our jobs?"
So 3 or 4 years ago, I started buying other businesses. So I said to them, look, guys, the types of businesses that I'm buying are businesses that need an ERP solution, and ideally the one we do, right? So I want to add value to these businesses, and I'm a mechanic who fixes engines and gearbox. I'm looking for things that have broken engines and gearboxes, so I can add value using the tools that I've got around me and my knowledge, and I can spot those ones a mile off because I can hear them. You start the car, that's a gearbox problem. That's an engine problem. I know because I've been doing it for 20 years. So I look for those. Often those businesses are stressed. I'm not so keen on the distressed ones. I've done them, and it's not worth the trouble if I'm honest. So,
so your staff understand that this is a part of the process of growing.
It's better than that, and it's actually borne out in reality. So the way I portrayed it to the staff is look, so what we're forming is a group. And what that means for you guys is we might have a engineering company over here, or a manufacturing company over here, or a professional services company in the group over there. And so therefore, if you're sick of doing ERP for a bit and you want to do a secondment into one of the other businesses in the group, tell HR, put it on your development plan. And suddenly, instead of it being something that's a negative or a threat, it's actually an exciting thing to be part of. But that's actually what I think, and that is what we've done. It's not a pitch. It's what we did.
I think that's a massive benefit for groups, because actually one of the struggles that small and medium-sized businesses have is how to keep developing their talent and keep, if you don't necessarily have a vertical path for them when you're the owner, right? So being able to keep them interested and develop them within that group environment is really, really key. And actually shared resources as well sometimes. One of the things we're looking at in our group is a shared resource profile.
On that note, sorry to interrupt, 2 seconds.
Please.
Just on that note, we had a civil engineering company, and one particular job that's very difficult to keep is the QS, quantity surveyor, and they keep getting poached by the big boys. So what we did instead is we put 3 different civil engineering companies, spread the load about paying him to be the head of a QS department, and then we had juniors below it. That way, you've got the group strength is able to keep really key staff that would normally disappear.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you need a range of work. So we need some easy projects, so our younger talent has got something to do and can cope. We need some hard jobs, some difficult ones, some big jobs. Otherwise, the clever guys leave because they're fed up. Yeah. And then we need something in between to progress into. And getting that right while you're growing your business and you're trying to look after the culture in your business at the same time, it's a complicated soup to mix. So yeah, that's just a leadership challenge that everybody has, but it does help being part of a group.
Absolutely. So Gaitan's asking if you can give examples or details of company profiles that you are targeting for the group or partners for the ERP. So we've said similar type of ERP companies in other geographies.
Mm-hmm. So in other geographies, certainly. And then, so if you look at the size, I was talking to a company who last year, literally I called them this morning. Last year they were available for sale, and I approached them through a contact, and not a broker, just a friend of mine knew us both, so introduced us. They went a different way, and then came back on the market.
And what sort of profile are they?
3 or 4 million turnover, 10-12% EBIT. They do Oracle and NetSuite. So Oracle have some financial products that big game, and then some, and NetSuite's very small for them. So what we wanted to do was help them get better at that bit.
So that gives you expansion into Oracle, and you can also help expand out some of the net.
And that's something that we were doing, whether we went into a group or not. That was us forming a group around this. And then there's other NetSuite solution providers or alliance partners that might want to come into us. There's different types of NetSuite partners because it's quite it's a $10 billion business. So it's not ours, the NetSuite element of Oracle.
And then you're also looking for ERP solutions that might suit smaller companies as well?
Yeah, 100%. This isn't for everybody. I'd like to think it is, but I'm kidding myself. It really isn't. There's 2 bits to it that you need to do. One of them is afford the product itself, which is it either works or it doesn't. But the other one is you don't need a sledgehammer to crack a walnut. And there's 2 kind of arguments. One is if you're here and you want to get here, the worst thing you can do is rip out the systems when you're here and then have to replace them all. But by the same chalk, if you put in the systems that you need here, you can't see me on the screen, but if you put in the systems that you need here when you're here, and it prevents you growing because you've spent all the capital on it doesn't work either. So
it's a fine balance, and to when to start putting that broader, bigger system in. But there are a lot of low cost ERPs which might be suitable, like £40 a month or something. So.
Well, yeah, okay. I don't know that they're ERPs, but yes, let's go with there are more cost-effective ones that suit smaller businesses. There's a lot of businesses under, if you once you hit £1 million turnover, you're in kind of the 2 levels up. There's millions of micro businesses and $1 or $2 billion businesses, and then the pyramid's kind of
Jan is asking if we have an upper limit EBIT or revenue wise.
I'll take that one. No, we don't, because Rick mentioned it earlier, and it's a very good point, which I don't think is articulated enough with the board advisors talking to business owners, and that is that you might bring in a £1 million company as a platform company to start a group, but the next one in might be a 5 one. It doesn't mean that they can't absorb them. And to Jan's point, if we had 100 million company come in, they could potentially already have a whole load of targets sat in the group, which is what Rick was talking about. The bigger one can buy all the smaller ones, or vice versa. The smaller ones can end up buying the bigger one. We really don't care which way round it is. Whoever wants the exit first, everyone else acquires them. Yeah, so we can help facilitate that process. And that's the key. We have acquisition as a service, which is we can help any business owner acquire any of the other companies. So we help negotiate that. So EBIT limit, there isn't one. Revenue limit, there isn't one. The largest one we've got going at the moment is 206 million turnover. It's a food processing company in Australia. We're just in negotiations with that one, but yeah, we'd just look at anything. The smallest one is about 500,000. So we've got a huge range of companies we talk to.
And final question that I've got on the decks is, how do you see the future of ERP systems, Rick?
Right. What's going to happen next is that AI is going to start to help them get slicker and easier. So you need less keyboard touching. And everybody's saying we've got AI. Oracle are doing it all the time. And really what they're doing is they're looking at text fields and putting an AI LLM button on it. But there's a lot going on in the background, which when you're a partner, you get exposed to, where it's actually quite exciting. Where imagine you say to ChatGPT, if you're paying for it, you're driving along and you say, let's have a conversation about something. And you learn by conversing with an intelligent resource or a knowledgeable resource. Let's not go with intelligent just yet. Although I have been playing with some swarms which are cleverer than me. If you go with a bot agent swarm, where a bot is a single, an agent is a group of bots, and a swarm is a group of agents. When you play with agents, which are nearly all in beta at the moment, a swarm, sorry, it's wow. It's like speaking to somebody very clever. So they just know all the answers. So it's going to get to the stage. I think that's probably what my wife says. Where it's going to get to is instead of saying instead of looking at a screen and saying what's our P&L, let's say what recommendations have we got if we want to increase the EBIT? What consolidations can we make?
From data to actual analysis and recommendation.
Yeah, so if you go with data, information, knowledge, and wisdom, the thing that was always the capture was the data was the problem, and now it's not anymore. And then what AI is doing is making the knowledge barrier go away, because you can just ask something and it has the knowledge built in. So the only thing is the wisdom, which comes from practicing the knowledge. So, and it's doing that because it can do it faster than us. So really what you look is say, if I want to get this business to this level with this infrastructure and this marketplace at the moment, what recommendations have you got, and what priorities would you put on them, and why? You're not there yet, but that's where it's going.
Cool. Future's exciting and bright and orange.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying not to do that one.
Yeah.
Or be more dog. We take the other route. Okay, no more questions on the decks, and we are bang on 2:30. So I'd say thank you very much, Ric and Rob.
Thank
It's
you,
been
Ric.
great having a chat and finding out a bit more about our ERP. And yeah, catch us again on the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers.